Okay, we're good to go, and for anyone on the webinar, we're using the chat feature, and we can take your questions throughout, but we're going to formally start tonight's meeting, and Jason Wright is going to open the meeting for us.
I just want to welcome everybody here. I'm Jason Wright. I'm the clerk treasurer of the city of Linton, and I represent Linton on the Alliance, and I'm also secretary of the Alliance. And so, first of all, I just want to turn things over to Joan.
Yes.
And we'll proceed with the program.
Right, and remember, you have a few slides to speak
Sure.
to. So, but what I'm going to do first is just give you a quick preview of how our session is going to work today. My name's Joan Chaplik. I'm here with Kevin Knapp from Sierra Plan, and we're helping to put on tonight's meeting. I'll be the moderator. I'll help take questions, and I'll also take questions that are coming in through the chat feature. We're going to have a short presentation. Jason's going to talk a little bit about the Alliance and the genesis of this conservation incentive tool that we're talking to you about tonight. And then Kevin Knapp, who is the technical brains of the operation, is going to show you a demonstration. So everything we're talking about, we hope is of interest to landowners. It's voluntary, it's informational. So if you hear anything that clicks and that you want to follow up and learn more, we'll be taking questions throughout. And then afterwards, we have till 8 o'clock, and Kevin can do some one-on-one time with you and just walk you through what your property looks like and what opportunities might be available. So that's our plan for this evening, and I'm going to turn it back to Jason to tell us a little bit more about the Alliance.
Sure. The Alliance the first meeting of the Alliance was in November of 2018. It was a lot of hard work with Radius Indiana, with Matt Craig, SIDC, and Greg Jones. They all worked, put it together, went to council meetings, commissioners meetings, basically selling the project, and a big part of the project was just opening up the ways of communications between Crane and our communities. There's always basically lack of communication, lack of information sharing, so that was one of the things we were trying to do, is facilitate that information to come between the communities and Crane. Also, a big part of it is to protect jobs in our community. I can't imagine, we've heard now that Merrim is closing over in Sullivan County. Also Carlisle, the coal mine, we can't imagine what it would do to our area if we would lose Crane. So we are working our way to protecting the jobs, but also, like I said, facilitating two-way communications between Crane and the communities, and also keeping the communities informed. We're able to do that by using our Facebook page, our website, we're on Twitter, LinkedIn. That's all ways that we can share different things that's going on at Crane and different things that's going on in each community that's involved with the Alliance. So we feel like that's an important part of what we can do to help with this relationship between our communities and Crane. Basically, this is pretty self-explaining, but if the Alliance functions well, all of these things can happen for our area, and as far as economic prosperity, mutually beneficial land use, community health and safety welfare, and the military mission and jobs at Crane are protected, which is one of the main goals and objectives of the Alliance. As Joan talked about, the incentive tool, conservation incentive tool, is a major part of the Alliance also. It's a voluntary thing that is for your use. It's going to tell you what things are out there as far as incentives, different things for your land in that 3-mile area. It's mutually beneficial for you as landowners and Crane to know what can be done in that area.
3 mile, define that. Is that from the border fence out, or what's the?
That's my understanding. Yes, from the border fence.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So basically, I look forward, I've seen different times Tierra Plan do some different, examples of it, but I've not seen it in full work really, so I'm looking forward to hearing from you, Kevin, and, I guess we'll just move forward and look forward to it, so thank you. Thank you guys for coming.
Okay, is Darren
Yes.
here today? Excellent. Well, we have Darren Seitzel. He's he's a landowner, and he's kind of an early adopter of the information. So if you want to share what your experience is like, and then Kevin will do a demo.
They asked me to speak tonight. They had chosen me as one of the landowners to kind of test pilot the mapping that they had set up through Tierra Plan. So I've reviewed it for a few months now at least. I can't remember exactly when it started. But they wanted me to speak tonight about me as a landowner, how I feel about land conservation and what it means to me. And to me, it's kind of twofold. One, the fact that we're losing farm ground each and every day, each and every minute in the United States. Also, the fact that if without good land conservation, you can have a lot of soil erosion, a lot of bad things can happen to your farm. So I'm kind of looking at it as the fact that in the United States, we are losing, 3 acres of farm ground per minute. In the last 20 years, they figure that we have lost enough farm ground to take up the whole state of Iowa. I really didn't realize that until I started reading some of the facts from the American Farmland Trust. Also, it takes, for the folks in here that are farmers, you understand that it takes 500 years to 1,000 years to build an inch of topsoil. So if that ground is not conserved, you're losing your investment. I look at my farm ground as an investment, something I can pass on to my kids and my family. And if you don't take care of your investment, you're not left with nothing, but it's extremely devalued if you're not taking care of it. How all that falls into place with the programs that they've got here is with the different programs within RCS and at the national level, like L. A lot of these objectives can be achieved, and it's very useful to me as a landowner. We've actually, on my farm, I've participated in the QUIP programs, and we also done the Apple program this year. It's the first time we've done that. It was a success, but the equip helps us to be able to secure our soil, and you let us put field border edges in, and also we've utilized it for building wasp cobs on the farm and different things like that to cut down on soil erosion. When I first acquired that farm back in, it was like 2011, there was several washes and everything on the farm, and we utilized the equip program to protect the soil. And as far as that goes, the L program was something that I've been introduced to through this that I was not aware of, and that kind of addresses the problem of losing farmland throughout the United States, because what that does, that puts a permanent easement on the property and allows that ground to always stay as farm ground. And like I said, I really did not realize the whole problem until I went back over to my folks. I grew up near Jasonville is where I grew up, and I went back over by my folks' place to visit them. I always go there, but I usually just go to the highway and go to their house and don't drive through the country. I grew up out in the country. I started driving around, and I couldn't believe the landscape that had changed and all the houses that had been built. I was driving down the road. There was a 40-acre field that I always knew as a field. Used to hunt around that field all the time when I was a kid, and it was full of houses. So that kind of brought it to reality to me. So, but as far as the tool, if you're most folks in here that farm and our farmers will probably be familiar with most of these programs, but I found it to be probably very beneficial to folks who do not understand the programs or have been exposed to those programs, and I just feel like that they could help a lot with your personal investment as a landowner, and also if it can help the base and keep the economics in the area. Like I say, I'm from Sullivan County, and we just got smacked in the face this week, so loss of a lot of jobs. So if this could benefit the local economy and benefits me as a landowner, I think it's great. So.
Okay, Darren, well, thank you. We really appreciate you sharing your experience and your values around why it's so important. And so, again, as Darren said, this is about information, helping you understand as a property owner what programs are available for you. This tool does all that research for you. And again, it's totally voluntary. And so I'll turn it over to Kevin, and he's going to take you through a demonstration. And so we'll get through it. We'll stop for questions periodically. And I'll also, folks on the webinar, use the chat feature if you have any questions, and we'll get them into the mix.
Give me 30 seconds to switch technology here.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I ask a question quick? And this is probably the map. Isn't there a law in place already that puts some governance on this green area up here?
So it's a great question, Carl. So there is an Indiana statute that does not apply governance to the properties, but the statute says that any institution, and I'm paraphrasing, any institution that creates a plan, as in a comprehensive plan or something like a master plan or something like that, is required by state statute to coordinate with NSA crowd.
Okay.
But that's all it does.
Okay, so we have a statute for coordination and some information sharing. So I'll turn it over to you, Kevin. Are you ready?
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. So my name is Kevin Knapp. I'm with a firm in Colorado called Plan. We engaged with the Alliance, gosh, a year ago now, I think, to work in this project. You know, our background, we're a technology firm that we build mapping tools and data tools to analyze problems, and a lot of them related to things like land use and planning and that sort of thing. So we're bringing sort of technology and a technology planning background to the mix to fill in with all this other stuff. So I'm not an expert on agriculture by any means, or conservation. I know a little bit about it, but I am, you know, we're well versed in building tools for people to be informed about such things. So what we've done for the Alliance is we built, to start with, just a nice, simple website. It's got everything you need to know about what the Alliance is doing. The URL, I think, is on the boards and on some handouts. So you can go here, and there's different information. There's calendars, there's updated events, there's documentation from past meetings, and so forth. More importantly, there's the link then to get into this toolkit that everybody keeps talking about. So I'm going to click that, and there's a page at the top called Conservation Toolkit, and it explains more about this. So, you know, if you get lost in not keeping up with me tonight, you can always go to this website. There's, in this page, and then under the support link, there's a bunch of how-tos and how to use the site and where to click and what things do. So there's good content there. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit, and you can just link into different components of the toolkit, the map here. So I'm going to do that and bring up the actual project. Okay, good, it works. I hate doing live demos, you know. So I'm going to walk you guys through kind of 4 different components to this, right? It's a web-based tool. It's a map. It's got lots of data in it. And in our world, we use terms like, you'll hear GIS, right? Geographic Information Systems. So a lot of people say it's a GIS map, or GIS project, or spatial data, map layers, things like that. If you're not familiar with that, don't get overwhelmed. It's just a map online, okay? So just to start out, when you open this, it starts out focused on Crane. You mentioned the 3-mile buffer. Everything that we're doing is within the context of this 3-mile buffer. So that blue circle here around Crane is the true 3-mile buffer. Therefore, all those green parcels you see are, we're only focused on land within that. You can toggle at the top from Crane to Lake Glendora. That's the other part of the project. So just the kind of way to go back and forth. You know, I know Darren, a lot of your land is up in the Glendora area, so, you know, Darren might use that tool and go here to start exploring. You know, you can zoom in and out by, you know, using these plus minus buttons, or if you use a mouse, your mouse roller, so you can zoom in and out, you can pan and drag, so you can explore the map, just like you do with Google Map or something else. Then there's some just controls on the right that I just want to make folks aware of. We, you know, went out and collected a lot of GIS data, right, map data that we could put on here, and these, we call them layers or overlays, and you can turn them on and off, and you guys can use them to explore things, or maybe a partner agency or somebody with a different angle might do this. But these are all map data that are somewhat related to conservation. Environmental layers like, you know, we've got floodplains and wetlands and, you know, conservation opportunity areas. We've got the Indiana bat habitat. That's a critical area database from the feds, and you'll see that yellow boundary here is a protected area. So that these layers give you a sense of what boundaries might impact, you know, land use and conservation opportunities. Most important layer of all is the parcels, and we'll talk about this in more detail. If you click the little caret here, it drops down a legend. So, you know, here's our parcel layer, and you can see that agriculture is green and commercial is red, and obviously, clearly most of the land here is agriculture. It dominates the landscape, but these exempt areas are mostly state parks and national forests. They're government-owned lots. In a lot of cases, those blue exempt areas are what we consider existing conservation, in the sense that they're protected areas now. There's a fun little widget here. If you click this ellipsis, you can turn the transparency on and off. So, you know, maybe if you're zoomed into an area and you're trying to get you know, maybe the parcels you want to kind of see through them, you can fiddle with that. There is a tool to turn on satellite imagery. You know, I think to most folks that gives them a better sense of what's there. So you can zoom in your parcel and turn on the latest imagery and see what's there, see what's nearby, or examine the landscape like that. I'll put it back on roads. I'm going to zoom back out. Reset my map.
This is why Kevin loves live demos so much.
Correct. We did another handy tool. We just call it a bookmark tool. So if you find your property and you zoom in and you turn on a layer you like and you turn the satellite imagery on, and then you need to leave the room, or you want to save it for later, or you want to send it to a friend, or you want to do something else with it, you can just make a little bookmark. So, for example, I made a bookmark earlier, named it after myself, and we'll see now when I click on it, it zooms into a parcel, which I believe is one of yours, and then I turned on the wetlands and some other layer and the satellite imagery. So it's a handy way to maybe make a little workspace in the map and keep it for later if you want to come back and do something with it. You can also share that. So if you click the share link, you know, and you want to email this to somebody else, or email it to a conservation partner, or to your wife, you know, or husband, or whatever. So you just copy this whole string and you can save it or send it somewhere. So it's just a handy tool to find where you are working, okay? I'm just going to reset. Oh, and there's also a little measure tool if you're kind of examining a parcel. We did this for fun. If you're interested in sort of figuring out what's, you know, how many acres maybe are around, you know, this handful of parcels. I'm just, you know, you can go in here and so it's 168 acres and measure a length or a width. So it's just a little tool for planning if you're trying to assess maybe a couple areas, and are they large enough to meet an eligibility rule for one of these programs. That might be useful. Okay, so give me a second, start over. All right, so that's just a little overview on the controls and navigating the map. What's more important is the, landowner stuff here. So before I get into that, I'm gonna go back to the slideshow, because there were a couple slides I wanted to go through before we start poking around in there. Oh, good. It's like, it'd be rich if we don't kind of review this. So the toolkit's really here to serve three groups of people. You, the landowners, so we want to inform you and expose you to programs. We want to integrate and support other stakeholder and other agencies like Land Trust and George Rogers Clark and TPL or whoever else might be interested. Obviously, all of the Alliance stakeholders that can read this community, the communities and the jurisdictions, including NSA Crane and their mission. And really the general public, I mean, anybody can come in here to explore this. And to your case about farmland disappearing, I mean, this might be a resource for someone else doing research about agriculture around military installation, right? And this could be a good use case for other communities, and puts the Alliance sort of leading the edge there. When we're looking at the map with all those parcels, that leads to discussing all the data we collected. So the beginning of the project was really about getting information. Like, we can build a map and a website, but what are we going to put in it? So we went out and we're trying to inventory and collect all of the conservation programs that look like they had an eligibility in southern central Indiana, within those 3-mile buffers. And we scoured them all, and we're reading them and trying to interpret the, eligibility rules from different websites. We settled on 15, and we'll show them to you. Then we went and collected all the land ownership parcels. So there's actually 10,946 parcels within the 3-mile buffers. That's a lot, it's a lot of folks, a lot of plats, and a lot of different land use codes. We collected the map layers I showed you in the little layer widget with the water and the things. We call those operational data sets, but we went and collected 18 different sets of boundaries and data that we think were relevant to the mission of this and conservation. Most of those are boundaries and land ownership, land use, environmental layers, and the military layers, and including the sound and the noise contours outside of Crane. We also, wanted to make sure that we accounted for existing conservation easements. There's value in adjacency to easements and what's already there. We found 27 of those, many of which are owned by the government, right? A state park and that sort of thing. And that was really a composite from 4 different data sets, including the NSED, which is the National Conservation Easement Database, IDNR, and PAD, and so forth. And just to give you a list, these are the sources of all the data we collected. I'm not going to read them all, but you can see that, we did go out and get a pretty thorough data collection from different agencies. We didn't just get focused from one group of people or make up our own stuff. But this slide and this list will be, available later if you want to actually get those. So the parcels were a big project. We had to get 5 counties, right, in the region, so we had to get 5 counties worth of parcel data and stitch them together. And then the parcel data that we got from the state didn't have any land ownership info, so we had to go to the state and get all the tax assessor data, and then join those to the parcels and sort of vet things out and do some spot checking, and so and then clip them all into the 3-mile buffers. So now we have this nice data set of parcel boundaries with the land ownership data, and the property class codes, which would allow us to map them by green and red and so forth. And we're really important in lining these up with eligibility. A lot of the programs that you're going to look at are going to be specifically for agriculture or even a subtype of agriculture. So I just want to point out that this is the best and most recent data we could get from the state, but it doesn't mean it's right. There's probably some errors in it, missing addresses, incorrect things. If you have an issue with that, call the tax assessor. But it's what we could get, and we can only use what's really official and public. Like, we're not in a position to go edit those parcels and change things on our own. with that data, then, as I said, we classified everything by those land use types: agriculture, exempt, commercial, residential, and so forth. And then we wanted to associate every one of those agriculture parcels with the programs that they could be eligible for, right? So we've got 15 conservation programs that have different, not necessarily easy to understand rules, but some of them are kind of simple. They might just say, you know, any agriculture parcel greater than 50 acres in southern Indiana is eligible. Okay, that's easy. All of the green parcels that we have get that one, right? Some of them are more complicated, like they need to be adjacent to a roadway, adjacent to, I think Apple, there's a corridors program, I think. There's adjacency to a waterway of wetlands, you know, a certain type of agriculture, where we had to kind of program things to find all the parcels that were adjacent to, say, the waterway and met all those 4 rules. Those parcels, they got associated with that program, right? So we went through that for all 15. I'll show you in a minute. I think we've connected all your land with what you should be able to look at. Then we built this online map. And then we did some analysis, and I'll show you in a little bit. We're trying to create like an index, a conservation index, to look at how different land parcels may have more or less potential for the number of programs. So out of the 10,000 plus whatever parcels, 4,425 ag parcels matched up to some number of these programs. So there's a little chart. The sweet spot sort of this 10, 11, 12 range here, right? A large number of the agriculture parcels actually fall into 10, 11, or 12 possible programs. That's pretty good to know. And you've got lots to choose from. So, you know, there's a few that had all 15, you know, and there were a few that only had 6. But the lowest number was 6. So that's kind of good news. So I'm going to go back to I just kind of want to set that, so you understand what information we got and how we're using it when we go back to the map, okay? All right. Okay, good. So now as you look at all these parcels and things, you kind of get that idea. So there's 3 sets of tools up here in this left panel. And we just said, you know, simply this first tab, we call it incentive programs, just for landowners. This is really about you guys. And you can go in and find your parcel and see what's there in 3 different ways. You could simply go, I'm gonna like up over here, I'm gonna zoom in a little bit, and if you know where your land is, and it's just really easy to find, you can just click any parcel, okay, highlights it in green, and then we display some of the parcel ownership info. This is, again, what's coming from the state. This is a good example. This address, there's no property address in the city's blank. You know, that's not anything we had control over, that's what we got. But there's the property type, it's agriculture. There's the owner name, it's Darren Sissel, and the address on record from the tax assessor office. So you can verify that's your parcel or whoever's you're looking at. And then below this, if you scroll down, are all of out of the 15 programs that we talked about that overlapped or, you know, we believe can be a potential program for this land, right? So you can click any of these. So you talked about EKIP earlier. Just click this. We put in a little summary of what the program is, the eligibility rules summarized from the program website or wherever we got it, and the funding source, which may or may not be important. And then you can link from all of these to the program website. So if you're interested in EKIP, a couple sentences, go to the EQIP program website and read all about it, and hopefully that can link you to, you know, some of the point of contact for that. And so you can just kind of open these up. There's ALE, the land easements that we talked about, again, and you can link to that, so forth. So it's fairly simple. You know, what we want to do is find a parcel and see what's available, okay? I'm going to reset, zoom out a little bit and go back. The second way you could maybe find a parcel is to just search by an address or a location name or street or maybe most important, like an owner name. So since Darren has volunteered, I'm gonna use him. Whoops. And as I start, bear with me, I start typing, for example, his last name, you'll see, you know, it'll auto-suggest all the parcels that are owned by that name. In the case of this, you know, your ownership name's the same for all your parcels, so it's hard to tell which is which, but I might click one, and it's gonna navigate me to a different parcel, right, that you own, and again, here's more information, here's the programs that parcel's available for. If I go back and start entering an address, 2-1, for example, I'm going to get 372 on East County, Rowan and Sullivan, so I can start entering an address, and we'll try to find the parcels that match that address. It's sort of like Google when you start entering an address, and it gives you auto suggestions, except that we're focused at just on the land that we have. So last name, address, and so forth. Another tool that's in here, you know, that might be of interest to folks that are trying to examine a large number of parcels in one area, and this might even be more of a planning agency or the alliance itself or another conservation group. So you can draw an area and sort of select a bunch of parcels. So I'm going to just start drawing a box around the edge of this region, get all these green parcels here. So in this case, I want to see what's available for all of these at once, and I can then go click each property, and underneath is a potential program. So there's this guy, and then if I close it, I open the next one. Now we're looking at this green property, and so forth. So 3 different ways to find the programs for parcels. Clear as mud. Useful. So, are there any questions, Joan?
Yeah, nothing coming in through the chat, but anyone want any clarification of what Kevin has demonstrated so far? Any questions?
Okay, I'll keep moving.
Yeah, why don't you keep going, show us a few more features that are there.
So, I'm going to go back to Crane. Another thing we did, now that we have all this information about who owns what and what the programs are, we created what we think might be a tool that's more useful for other conservation agencies to look at, like land trust, for example. And we turn this off for a second. What we did was we created. We call it a conservation index. And what we wanted to do is create sort of a visualization that shows the sort of state of conservation opportunity within the region. So you'll see the parcels are now color coded on a light green to very dark green scale. And so for every parcel, what we did is we went in and we made a little score. So if a parcel is adjacent to an existing easement, got a point, right? And if a parcel was, remember we looked at the chart with a number of programs, the parcels with the highest number of programs, like 12 to 15 got 3 points, and the parcels with, I think it was 9 to 11 got 2 points, and then 8 and below got 1 point, right? So we were giving it a weighting based on how many potential programs there are. And then we looked at acres. We said if a parcel's 50 acres or greater, we give it a little more weight. We give it a point. Because some of the conservation programs like larger swaths of land, and then to kind of fit in with the military mission, if it's within the Crane noise MCA, which is the noise boundary, and Todd can elaborate on that if we need to. We gave it a point, right? We took all those points, we normalized it, and made a score of like 0 to 100, and then we could map that. We could say, okay, now of the 0 to 100, let's put everybody in groups of 20 and make a map, and we can see where there's clusters of dark green, like of parcels where they all score highly in this index. So maybe perhaps a conservation agency might want to go in and start talking to you guys here, or they might be looking at the light green ones and saying that there's opportunities there. if one was to argue and say, well, we don't think that the noise MCA should have anything to do with the score, you can come in here and fiddle with this and take it out, and then it readdresses it. So we put these little sliders controls in there for folks that really get into the data and want to kind of fiddle with this and just make your own score. You know, it might be that, it's interesting. Let me show you something. If I turn everything off and I make adjacency the only driver, what we end up with is all of these parcels you'll see are only the parcels that are adjacent. These dots are existing easements, right? So you can see how the existing easement starts to score up a little bit. And it's like important to some folks that parcels are next to, it may have value to your conservation potential. Anyway, it is subjective. You know, we could add different scores to this index. People could ask, well, why did you pick this and pick that? And it was really an exercise in trying to say, look, we've got all this data. You know, we can analyze it, we can index it, we can make a score, and we can change that later. It doesn't have to be this way. So, but it just kind of demonstrates the power of what we can do with the information to help the planning groups and the Alliance and everybody, you know, maybe work more closely with you all. The last tool in here, okay. This is just for everybody. This is for the public. This is for a landowner. This could be for a concerned citizen. This could be for a planning agency. Or you can use the map as a public input tool. So you can put a pin on the map, enter a comment, it gets sent to the system, and goes straight to the Alliance, and they can respond to you and answer your questions. So just for fun, I'm going to zoom in here. I'm going to say I have a general comment about, let's say, this land parcel, you know, and you can enter whatever you want. Well, you know, I am concerned about this, blah, 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 and elaborate on it. You can optionally put your name in here, right? Kevin Knapp and my email address, and hit submit, and it goes into the database, and they get an alert. And then on the back end, there's an administrator site where the Alliance has a map, and they can see all of these pins and where people are entering their feedback. So the idea is if a lot of people use this feedback tool and enter comments and complaints or concerns, over time they'll see clusters of patterns of things, right? What we wonder is if, you know, suddenly there's, over the course of 6 months, you know, a big cluster of noise complaints, for example, in a certain area, right? Well, that would be indicative of something going on that maybe the Crane wasn't aware of, and it can go to the PIO and they can address it, or whatever. So, you know, we encourage people to use this as a way to send a comment, and the reason why is when you put the point on the map, it logs that as a point. Like, they can see, where are you? It's not just, I live near Sullivan and I own a farm and so. It's like they could see which one you're talking about and visualize it, and it's pretty easy. So that's
2 years we used to have storm winds.
That's the application in a brief summary. You know, we're trying to get through this because we got folks in the webinar and it's a timed event. We're going to be here till another 45 minutes, so we can definitely sit down with you guys and look at a case-by-case basis or answer a question or look at a scenario. But I'm going to turn it back over to Joan now.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
if there's anyone on the webinar who wants to send a question in through the chat feature, please do it right now. We'll wait a moment or so, and then we're going to shut the webinar down so that the folks online can get off the computer, and then we can focus our time on those of you who are here in person. So you're all welcome to come up and ask Kevin questions. We have an extra laptop here that you can log on and test it. We have some information about the conservation programs. So let's see. So nothing's coming in through the chat, so we'll have Kevin log off and leave the meeting, and now we'll just go to kind of a general one-on-one Q&A. Please visit the stations, get some brochures, and you're welcome to stay for as long as you like. We'll be here till 8 o'clock answering any questions that you have. And so with that, we're going to close the formal part of the program, And now feel free to ask more questions, come on up and speak with us, and again, we can do some demos and get another laptop going. Okay, well, thank you, Kevin, and,
Really quick, that.
go to end meeting, yes.